Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to those that are watching on YouTube, those that are listening on the podcast. For those that are on YouTube, this one looks a little bit different to the other ones because we're actually checking in with Eugene Teo today on Skype instead of Zoom. So hopefully this all goes well. Welcome to the podcast, mate. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. A big honour to be here.
Usually we have a long list of questions to keep conversation going with our guests.
Right.
But you're such a fucking ray of sunshine and bag of rainbows that I don't think it's necessary for you. Of course, we have some backup questions, but I feel as though that you're such a chatterbox that we'll just go down some rabbit holes and we'll have a great time.
I hope so. Otherwise, it's going to be really fucking awkward if we just stare at each other. We could try. That's the thing. Eye gazing is a real thing where like you pay to go to these courses, not in lockdown periods, obviously, and you just sit there. You pay good money to stare at a stranger for 20 minutes straight.
Ooh.
What is the outcome that they want?
You know, Tim Ferriss talked about it once or twice. I think he even has a video of him just staring into the camera for like this.
I'm uncomfortable already.
It's about breaking down those barriers and connection and like I don't really know. Like
Ooh.
maybe it's the new first base with this whole down stuff.
It's probably true. You know, I wonder if there'd be an association. Liz, her background is in, I was going to say anthropometry, which it's not, completely different. It's anthropology and social science, and there being a relationship between the amount of people per capita or per square meter and then the social distance that's considered personal space. Am I butchering this?
You are, but that's cool. Basically, let's say Chinese populations that they're very dense, and or even Japanese, and so there's not a lot of personal space. You kind of stand shoulder to shoulder, and it's not rude. But then if you go out to rural communities, there's far less density of population, and so their personal space is much larger. So when you stand next to someone on the side of the road, you're going to stand much further apart. So is there a point to bringing this up?
My point is, I wonder if the impact of the staring in the eyes would have varying effects depending on population density.
Yeah, maybe.
Because, if you are in a heavily populated area and standing face to face looking at each other in the eyes is probably not that big of a deal. Unless, of course, you're looking at a Buddha, which I don't believe you're supposed to do.
What do you mean?
I don't know. They don't do. There's one of them. They don't do eye contact. You have to kind of look to the side.
Really?
I don't know if it's Buddhist. I'm probably wrong again. I'm butchering that too.
I was over in Myanmar last year and going to all the Buddhist temples. I'm not Buddhist at all, but the host was. I thought when you go to these places, you do what the hosts do. So we went to some temples. Beautiful. But there were Buddhist statues everywhere. And I looked at all of them in the eye. So I'm fucked.
No, I'm probably wrong. I'm butchered too. We're going to go 3 for 3 somewhere in this podcast.
Cool story, Dean. So anthropology is essentially, if we boil it down, the study of culture. And just before we pressed record, you were saying how you love Rome and you love its culture, because in Australia we don't have a lot of culture. And you used the word culture incorrectly, Eugene, and I didn't appreciate it. So
Jeez.
Welcome to the podcast. We all do this in Australia. I got in trouble so often from Liz when we first started dating because I said the same thing. I like Sydney. It has more culture than Brisbane. She's like,
okay.
Speaking of which, you were saying that you love traveling.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you, and because you love being immersed in the culture and doing what the locals do and getting off the beaten track. So my question to you is, if there was a cultural practice that went against your moral compass, would you just think, when in Rome, what would you do?
Or should we give an example, like eating whale in Japan?
Yeah.
If you go to Papua New Guinea and you're like, you know what, let's just start cannibalism, why not, right? Where do I draw the line? Well, first you've got to define where is your own moral compass. Like, am I against cannibalism as a whole? Most definitely. I'm not going to go down through and just start eating people like Zombieland. But
what if they consented?
Hey, beg your pardon?
What if they consented to you eating them?
If no one is being harmed, if it is consensual and is part of this cultural experience, I don't know if I'd go ahead and eat a person. But it's not going to be a firm no. I could probably be convinced. So like eating whale in Japan. I'm not sure if I ended up eating whale in Japan, but my first night there, I was on my own. I had no concept of the language. But again, I look Asian, so I think, oh, this guy's Asian. He must know the language. So they start giving me all this food in some sushi joint, and I'm pretty sure that one of these bits and pieces, it wasn't tuna, it wasn't kingfish, it wasn't salmon. I'm convinced it was whale, but I don't know. It had a weird darkness, a weird color to it. It was strange. But look, I wouldn't be against doing that if it was part of a thing in the culture. Although am I using the word culture correct in this context now? Now I'm confused. I'm concerned.
You are. So we can use the word culture in the context of like belief systems and customs and traditions. Yeah, that's
right.
the thing.
Right.
Yeah, so when Dean says Sydney has no culture, I was like, okay, dude, they have no belief systems and customs and traditions.
What I meant is they have old buildings and Brisbane doesn't.
History.
History, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, that is
history and heritage, I think, is probably the thing. But if you had to be accountable, what muscle would you dive into first?
Okay. Apparently, the tastiest part. So, like when you eat a chicken, what do you like the most out of chicken?
Breast.
Do you like wing?
I prefer breast. Yeah.
Breast is best.
Okay, well, I'm just going with weird to you. I like chicken wings, like not for the macros, just for the crunch, the flavor, the texture, delicious. So apparently, according to a friend, the hand is very similar to chicken wings.
Really?
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. If you compare that to a chicken wing, it's got the same kind of texture to it. It's got that drier kind of flesh, but a lot of skin and not much fat. But the skin, the skin to meat ratio is very favorable there for giving you some really crispy, chewy meat.
Ooh, you'd be gnawing on a hand.
Very interesting.
What an experience that would be to hold an entire human hand.
I'm so glad the conversation went here.
Normally,
I can blame myself though. I did. Now, Eugene, I think everybody knows you because like you're the master of the industry. Is that a cool title? But for those of you that are unfamiliar with the almighty Eugene Teo, can you just explain who you are, what you do, and why you do it?
Way to stroke my ego after cutting me down. Like, Dina, I feel for you, man. This must be rough living with her because, like, she's putting you up and then back down. I'm like, oh, I feel good about myself. Then slap you straight down. You got back in your corner, drinking your coffee.
You've summed up our relationship nicely.
Keeps you on your toes. I like it. So, I am a personal trainer. Like people ask me a lot, hey Eugene, what do you do? What are your qualifications, et cetera, et cetera. By trade, I'm a personal trainer. I have my base certificates in fitness, in training from whatever the institute was here in Australia. Can't remember what it is, but let's not plug them anyway. We don't care about them. And I've worked with clients for 10, 11 odd years now, and over that time, I just really enjoyed the way that I was working with my clients, and I just through having to find ways to be able to help them and service them better, it grew into online coaching, probably much like you guys, where you didn't sit there and say, we want to make a lot more money, let's start doing online coaching, because it doesn't really work like that. But it was more so, how are we able to meet the demands of our clientele who want to work with us, but who necessarily can't due to distance or due to time, or just due to you trying to find ways to better leverage your time to be able to service people better. So that became online coaching maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And eventually that grew into me realizing how much more I enjoyed the education side of it. As to why I really was I really connecting with in terms of training people one-on-one. What did I really enjoy about the coaching experience? It was like, great, like I liked being able to get the competitor to stage. I liked being able to help a client drop some kilos or whatever. But what really got me over the line more than anything else was being able to help that person understand everything better on the education side of it. So around that time, I started doing a lot of educational workshops through Australia, and eventually I just decided to take that leap of faith and did it internationally. And that is where we are now. If there wasn't lockdown, where I would probably be on a tour at the moment. But instead, we're twiddling our thumbs in lockdown. That's
How do you find... Love it. Sorry to interrupt you there. How do you find educating people online versus in person?
It's different, of course. It's different. Like I'm always going to do in-person events as much as I can. because I just love that. I love the interaction. I love being able to just work with people. There are always going to be things, especially in the realms of like biomechanics and training and exercise selection, all those different kinds of things. There's always going to be something you just can't pick up in an online course. No matter how well structured it is, no matter how detailed it is, no matter how many camera angles there are, until you're there experiencing it in the flesh, it's not going to be the same. You're going to be able to gain a lot of knowledge, but there's that little extra 10% or whatever that's always going to be there for the students to be able to get from an in-person interaction. But also, I just love it. Like, I love being able to work with somebody in person or many people in a classroom setting. And I like the live event of just the interactions with people there where there's some kind of script and flow to a general workshop. But I always leave things very open to interaction, where if a lot of the class is more, say, powerlifters, I'm teaching in a powerlifting gym, or I'm teaching in a CrossFit box, or whatever it is, I like being able to mold things to the individual, to the questions, to the classroom, and to the general, to the general audience. And that's what keeps things interesting for me. Otherwise, if you're not teaching the exact same thing over and over and over and over again, which I have done, it gets kind of boring as well. But online, of course, the exposure you can get, the reach you can get, the impact you can get, that is unique in and of itself. Like, no matter how much I do my workshop tours around the world, I will never, ever be able to have the same level of impact immediately that I can have online. Like, for example, just recently I gave a live stream lecture on my app about pain and posture and muscular imbalances. And that's a lecture that I've wanted to put out for the masses in some kind of setting for literally about 4 or 5 years. But I haven't done it because it's not enough to become a full-blown couple-a-day workshop. I can't justify doing just a 1-hour workshop or 1-hour lecture in person somewhere. And I knew that no matter how I did it, it wouldn't necessarily be done the way that I would want to, given the resources and how it would work in an in-person environment. Now, doing it online, live streaming it, I've got so many more people than I could ever get probably in one location, where I had, it was like nearly 400 people in this one event, which was awesome. And I mean, you can get that in an auditorium, I guess, but still trying to find that into one location is very challenging. But again, because I had the studio, I had everything set up the way that I wanted to, I knew that I could present it exactly the way that I wanted to and present all the information I needed to be able to help translate that message to the masses. And very fortunately, it was very well received. Like, the response I got from it was overwhelmingly positive, and it's one of my happiest moments in terms of my teaching career, being able to do that. And it was an online thing, despite me really enjoying the personal, in-person stuff that I do in workshops.
Yeah, I think that's majorly especially got to do with, obviously, like you said, it's content that's specifically effective in that domain, which I think is probably what a lot of people in this world get wrong. Like you said to us before, like Flex kind of started by virtue of a passion and servicing people from demand that I couldn't service and Liz couldn't service in an online fashion. So we kind of just naturally progressed there. But most people try and say, I want to do X, like I want to be an online coach. Therefore, I'm going to just do all my content on that, instead of like you found the spot for that particular piece of content. You've also found the spot for your other content. A lot of people mess that up for sure.
Dean mentioned this morning that he listened to a podcast you did with Jordan Shallow, RX Radio, and you mentioned that for a while you thought you were an introvert, and that's why you didn't want to do in-person stuff. Am I getting this right?
Yeah, well, that you aligned with the concept of being an introvert. But you've since realized, I think your conversation was that you needed to essentially just become a better communicator, and then that gave you the energy to now be what other people may actually think you as being an extroverted individual.
And the ability to do seminars and be confident and have fun. So how have you gone about the adjustment there?
Right. So, to give people some context if they haven't listened to that podcast, it is along the lines where, for many years, I would even as recent as maybe this time last year, I could easily identify someone who is an introvert by that nature of, you've just done all this interaction socially, you need to go into your shell and curl up in a ball and cry and recover before you can go out again and do that. And the more I got to thinking about it, the more I realized what was really exhausting about those interactions. Was it really exhausting having to talk about stuff that I love? Was it really that exhausting having to talk to my friends, my family? Because of course, like, you know, there are some people out there, like maybe you are someone who needs to recharge every now and then, but there's always those people, friends, family, whoever it is, where you always feel comfortable around them. And how come it's not draining to be around them? Like, because they get you, maybe, but maybe it's because you have no issue connecting with them. You have no issue because for whatever reason it is, you just connect well with those people. And that then should highlight to you why you need to recharge from every single other person out there or every other interaction out there. Is because, not because you're labeled an introvert who's stuck with this for the rest of your life. It's maybe because you suck at connecting with all those other people. And that is a lot more, like, it sounds kind of harsh to say, but it's actually owning something that you can actually improve upon. And it's recognizing I don't necessarily want to call it an inherent flaw, but it's just something about our personality that needs to be developed more. That, yeah, if you can get on with certain people, I guarantee you, no matter how introverted a person may be, there's still going to be one or two people they feel comfortable around. And there's a reason for that. And if you can get comfortable around one person and you don't find them to be draining and pulling away from your energy levels, then there's actually no big reason why you shouldn't be getting that from just about every other person out there. The difference being how easily you're able to connect. And what tends to drain a lot of people, including myself, this is why I identified with it so well, was what drains these introverts, in inverted commas, so much, is the conscious or subconscious anxiety that they're having. The performance anxiety, the anxiety of not fitting in, the anxiety of not being able to connect and think, oh, what are people going to think of me? Oh, well, I wish I could fit in like those people do in that crowd. I wish I had friends like that. I wish I could be like that. All of those thoughts that we ruminate over in these interactions, that is exhausting. The actual interaction itself, once you've broken those barriers, it's not exhausting at all. It should be energizing because, again, like we're humans with tribe, we're social creatures. We're designed to be social. Again, there's going to be different levels of this. Like, I don't think everybody's going to be over the top, energized all the time around people. But it should actually be seen, or it should be seen as maybe a little bit off if you struggle with those connections. And again, doesn't mean that you're fucked up or that you're inherently flawed and broken. It just means that, hey, chances are you've spent zero time whatsoever trying to develop that. You spent zero time paying attention to that and realizing, hey, that's something I need to work on. It's just like, you know, with what we do in terms of training, bodybuilding, powerlifting, it's like maybe we just neglect cardiovascular work for our whole life. It's like, oh, it's not an issue whatsoever. I'm fine. Until you actually realize, maybe that's why I'm getting all these other issues, because I've been neglecting something that I should have paid more attention to. It's the exact same thing here. Is this, you don't really know what you don't know. And like, that's why, like, a lot of what I enjoy talking about and teaching people about is, yes, training and nutrition and biomechanics, but I also like people to realize that a big part of their ability to get results is going to come down to their mindset, their psychology, their mentality, and their management of stress. And the biggest source of most people's stress levels is the internalization of a lot of these anxious thoughts from their inability to connect with people and their inability to thrive in a social setting or in any kind of interaction, and to be comfortable like that. And I guess, let me think back again to your initial kind of question, was that transition. It came about through a lot of the teaching that I was doing. Was I started to be able to think a lot less about the actual content because I was just doing so much of it, and I was able to start thinking more about how can I make sure that what I'm communicating in the lecture is not falling on deaf ears. How do I make sure that these people aren't just becoming brain dead and falling asleep? How do I keep them excited and interested and actually active in the process for a 12-hour day? Because, like, you guys have run seminars as well, and you guys know after that first 40 minutes, people start shifting around, they get uncomfortable. People got even 10 minutes, even 4 minutes, people are starting to get ADD. If you don't get people's attention in the first minute of interaction, you have lost their attention for the rest of the hour.
I do the seminars with my shirt off to get people's attention.
Perfect.
Yeah, it works.
Perfect. But I mean, it is as simple as that. And then I realized, how do I get these people more interested? Not using my boobs. How do I entertain while keeping my dick in my pants? That was a big challenge. And then it really came down to becoming an effective communicator. But you can only be an effective communicator if you really have a good level of awareness of yourself. and who you are as a person. Because when you communicate, you are giving a piece of yourself to the audience to accept. That's a communication process. Now, you can't give somebody anything if you've got no clue about yourself.
So where in this domain do you think that educators mainly go wrong, or communicators?
Well, most educators are obsessed, which is not a bad thing, but because it helps them with their understanding, they're obsessed with the content. They think, oh, because I've got this PhD, because I've got this degree, because I have done all this research, I've got this incredible PowerPoint presentation packed with references, it is going to be so engaging and enthralling and to get everybody's juices flowing. And that will appeal to a very, very, very small number of people. Even the complete nerds who love that kind of stuff, they're still going to not really engage with it, and they're going to just become brain dead listening to a lecture like that. And that's where I think a lot of educators go wrong, is they're so incredibly knowledgeable in what they're doing. Like, they're so good at nutrition, training, whatever it is, but they suck with their people skills. They suck with their communication. And that's why, like, I really want to help people understand this more, because there are so many of my friends, so many of my colleagues, people I know in the industry who are a wealth of knowledge. But what's holding them back is their ability to get it out there. What's holding them back is their ability to put it to the masses in a way that people want to consume it, they want to understand it, and then they want to share it and tell their friends about it. And that is ultimately how the industry as a whole can grow, is not if the one person is so successful, the one person has all the knowledge up in their ivory tower, but if they're able to translate that in a way that is appealing to as many people as possible. And the unfortunate catch-22 there is when these people, like, part of what helps a lot of these people become so good at their craft of understanding nutrition or biochemistry or training or whatever it is because maybe they've gravitated towards that because they weren't that good in a social setting. You know, how many stories do you hear of that in different interviews? They're like, yeah, I wasn't really the cool kid growing up, so I just started to nerd out in training. I didn't really fit in sports, but I fell in love with the gym and I started obsessing over that. I hurt my back, I couldn't really do training, so I started focusing on nutrition. That's everybody's story, you know, it's part of my story as well. But eventually, when you have the knowledge, you owe it to yourself and you owe it to your audiences to say, how can I get better at giving that to people?
But also, I think getting amongst the crowd and being social and presenting seminars, not just behind a camera or in your armchair or your ivory tower, you also get to know what the real problems are. Yeah. So, and where people aren't understanding, like, where does that gap lie? Like, it might be easy to us because we have a foundational knowledge of science, but maybe there's this gap between the research and the understanding, and we only know that as educators when we're amongst people. And we listen to what they struggle with. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one every time we've ever done a seminar, it's like, I think we've got most of what we need to down here. And you start off, like you said, and it either starts off exceptionally well and continues, or it's flat and then it grows, or whatever it may be. And at the end of it, you're like, I can't believe that they didn't understand that bit. Like, we missed that part of the market. We didn't understand that there was a hole there. And then we're like, okay, let's rejig this. Let's reevaluate. Let's determine where we need to take the next one.
Yeah. So I understand that you're a big fan of having coaches and mentors to learn from. Who would those people be?
In terms of, like, in-person interactions with people, so I know a mutual friend of ours is Luke Lehman.
Oh,
so he's the guy who I looked up to many years ago, and, like, I love going through a lot of what he was putting out there as content. Prior to that, there were people like Charles Poliquin. There are people who I never met, guys like Vince Gironda, Bill Pearl, different old school bodybuilders. And I think an important thing with all these different mentors is understanding, like, I think the mistake people make is when they hear people spit off these different names, they go and digest and they consume every single thing that person has done and take it as gospel. They start drinking Kool-Aid. And that is where there's a lot of danger in that, because every single person has got their own degree of Kool-Aid in what they're putting out. Even myself, I guarantee you that a lot of what I put out, I'm sure it's great, but I'm sure that there's a good 20% there of complete Kool-Aid. You know, there's going to always be some stuff there that is not always going to be absolutely gospel that you should follow to a T. Because it's always going to be open to some interpretation. There's always going to be the it depends. And there's always going to be sound bites that get heard without the full context given. But that is part of why, like, I try to, whenever I even do a post on Instagram, I try to give as much context as I can to help people understand that. But even then it comes down to that person's level of reading comprehension or listening comprehension, which is always going to be a little bit hit and miss as well. with all these different mentors is trying to find as many different sources as you can to be able to pull different bits of information from. And then more importantly than that is how do you then use that Bruce Lee mentality of accept what is useful, reject what is useless, and then adapt what is uniquely your own. So I couldn't even, like, those are the names that come to the top of my head off the top of my head, but there are many, many more people who I'd always be looking to for more advice and more knowledge. Like just looking at my bookcase, I've got some work from Dr. Andy Galpin. I've got Lyle McDonald's stuff up there as well. I have, who else?
Say, while you blocked him, like, now there's a good example of a communicator.
Oh, Lyle McDonald. His communication style, oh my God, of a 3-year-old.
Yeah. It's lacking a little bit, but that's okay. I guess it works. He's happy. He's happy, I guess. Who else says? There's Tudor Bomper, which is great for programming, periodization, and of course Charles Poliquin. But yeah, just as many different sources as I can. But also understand that every single one of those sources, they're incredible, they're fantastic, but they're always going to be lacking. There's always going to be bits and pieces missing, or that aren't applicable to me, or aren't applicable to who I want to teach to, and I've got to find ways to adapt it. Or get rid of certain aspects of it.
Yeah, you mentioned like interpretation and it depends, and in this context, and I'm finding that increasingly frustrating at the moment because there's only so many words you can put in an Instagram post, and you want to talk about, I don't know, whatever, reps in reserve, something, whatever. But like, how much background information can you give every single time you talk about this thing? Yeah. Or like, is there just some copy and paste template, like in the right context, you know?
You almost need a forward.
I just want to like move on from that now and like assume some foundational knowledge, but that's probably not fair because we're not talking to scientists, we're talking to Gen Pop. Or... For
sure. And that's why I think, and this is very, very, very much a balancing act. And I don't think it's necessarily, use your words, Eugene. I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong to this, but this is what I've found to be a useful strategy for me is, first of all, understand that no matter how much context you give, people are still going to skip over it. Like I'll put out a video recently on my YouTube where it was a, what was it? It was a band lat workout. And I didn't want it just to be, hey, here's a random workout, go do it, have fun with it, and just run with it. I wanted to give some context saying, here is why I do these exercises. Here's why it's useful. Here's why it's better than doing other stuff you might be doing. And more than a good amount of comments on there were saying, bro, it took you 5 minutes to start talking about the actual workout. And I said, it's 5 fucking minutes to help you understand not just some random fitfluencer workout, but actually why it's applicable, why it's useful, and who it's useless for. People are still going, it's still going to fall on deaf ears no matter how much context you give, and it's still going to be negatively received by many people as well. So in that lens, I'm like kind of like, nah, don't worry about it. Can put the content however you want to put it out, and then let the people who can benefit from it by going through the entire experience. But in the same breath, in terms of trying to get the right impact, where you're trying to reach a wider audience, because I don't want to just have this content I'm putting out there be reserved just for personal trainers. I don't want it reserved just for scientists or whoever it is. I want it to be received well by as many people as I can, because the people who would normally switch off and disengage, they're probably the people who need it the most. Like those are the people who need that guidance and support. And that is where it is. It could be beneficial to have things that are very, very easy to digest, almost to the point of clickbait, although I definitely try to trend away from pure clickbait stuff. But understand that, yeah, you know what, I'm going to put out a video that's going to give pretty much no context and just say, hey, do this exercise, it's going to fuck your life up and you'll love it. And understanding that is it's going to get people's foot in the door. We have to look at this through a consumer life cycle. If someone's going to come in and they're going to have an impression of you, and they're probably going to walk out the door, turn off the phone and forget about you altogether. And that means they're a lost customer altogether. There's a higher chance they're going to turn off and not be a customer and not be a consumer of information if it is long-winded, boring and wordy and not appealing whatsoever. But if you can at least get their foot in the door, that one post is not going to change them and not going to help them long-term. It never was going to though anyway. Even if they became a consumer, that post is not going to be the be all and end all to change their life. It's going to be about the 10 other posts that you do down the line. It's going to be about them saying, you know what? These guys are Flex Success. They're putting out some really interesting content that I can understand. I wonder what they have to offer on their blog. I wonder what they have to offer on their YouTube. I wonder what, I'm learning a lot from these 30-second Instagram videos. I'm learning a lot from these short 100-word posts on Twitter. I wonder what they've got written up in their archives, in their article section. And that's where the consumer will naturally self-select how deep they go into your offering. But that's why you got to have different offerings. And that's why, in terms of like what I do with social media, I mean, a big part of it is because I enjoy doing it more than anything else. But I do make sure I'm trying to give people different layers, different levels, where YouTube is positioned in a certain way, Instagram posts are a certain way, Instagram stories are a certain way, Instagram lives are a certain way, the stuff on my website, my app, that's done in a certain way, to the point where a lot of my people, they're like, man, the Eugene that's on Gambar Method on your app is very different to the Eugene that we get on Instagram live. It's very different to the YouTube Eugene. I said, yeah, it is, because I'm trying to make sure that I can still be me and not put on a fake act. But I also know that I'm trying to connect with as many people as I can the best way possible. And it's going to be through sharing different amounts of information at different points in time, depending on who it's appropriate for.
I personally love the Instagram Live Eugene the best, where you sing into a broomstick or something. And I'm always so amazed at your luscious locks.
Well,
it's always so shiny. Mine's up in a bun permanently, because it's just, I can't maintain this Hagrid hairstyle, but yours I'm very jealous of.
Well, I did watch this just for you guys.
Did you?
There's got to be years in that. How many years is into that?
I started growing it from pretty short, probably shorter than what the sides are now, about 2011 for my first bodybuilding show. And then I've had trims since then, but yeah, that's about 10 years.
Wow, that's a lot of hair. It's a lot of hair.
I feel like with the little bit you talk about this context prior to giving the information on a post that's short, perhaps we all need to go for like the Joe Rogan-esque start to a podcast where everybody knows you're going to get 4 minutes of ads. So we should have a jump to point. So it's kind of like, if you're interested in the context, here it is. Well, but if not, jump to there and jump to the extra bit that you just want to just watch on.
Yeah, it's funny. If you don't give the context, you get criticized. If you give the context, you get criticized.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Like the happiest medium, and that's actually quite a simple thing to do, is just put in timestamps and say, hey, at 2 minutes in, this is when the workout starts. At 1 minute in, this is when I talk about why I don't like barbells. At 5 minutes in, this is where I get naked. So people know where to go for whatever they want to consume.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on. You've got your app and, posts and Instagram videos and your website and YouTube. Do you find all of that exhausting, or do you wish that social media wasn't so important in 2020?
Good question. It definitely, it very rarely feels like work. I'm very fortunate that I can say that, where I genuinely, like with my video guy, I'll sit there saying, I can't wait to be able to film this next bit. And even if we spend an hour straight trying to film a 5-minute video for YouTube, I'm happy to do that, because I know every time we do it and reshoot it and retake an angle, it's for a good purpose. They're like, yeah, we're going to try this new angle now. We're going to try using this line, not that line. We're going to try using a dumbbell, not a barbell. It's exciting for me to be able to do that. And then the end product is a 5-minute YouTube video, where even like every time I get to sit down and write a post for Instagram, or I'm writing an email or videoing or something, in the back of my mind, I mean, you could very easily see, content creation is so exhausting, so much work. But I see it as, this is an opportunity for me to be able to put out something that I know is going to have the potential to help a lot of people, to impact their lives, to get somebody training. And, what reinforces that for me, which is probably more about the position that I've been able to create for myself now, is the feedback that I get from people. Like, that is so... that is what makes a lot of it worthwhile, is when I hear about someone saying, look, Eugene, I listened to that pain lecture and it's completely changed how I approach my injury now, and I feel so much better already. Or I tried that exercise, I've been so demotivated training Corona, I've been so depressed, and then I did that one thing that you show with the towel on your Instagram, it looked fucking stupid, but oh my God, I feel like I'm so excited now to start trying different exercises or whatever it is. And being able to see just that kind of positive impact, that is extra fuel to say, wow, it helps motivate me more and more and more to say, like, this is why I really love the work that I do, and that I really don't necessarily see it as work. It definitely does get exhausting when you're going at the back of a 12-hour day just writing content straight over a computer, or having to edit videos. Like, that consumes up a lot of time, and that can be tiring. Do I wish that social media wasn't around?
Or as important?
As important? Maybe, but then you're always going to have to counter that with what is it going to be replaced with? If social media was a lot less important, what would be the thing that would take its place for you to be able to create the same connections, for you to be able to create the same impact or whatever it is? And I can't even think as to what that would be. So even though there are times where like my phone is always going off the hook from different notifications or different people I'm trying to get back to, or even just my own developing team or my PA or whatever it is, and there are times where like I wish I could just throw it all away. That kind of mentality, I recognize it as entitlement, as me thinking like I should be able to just have all these connections, have all the good side, all the upside without the downside. And when we really think about it, is the downside really that down? Is having to reply to somebody who's taken the time out to message you, is that really a downside? No, it fucking isn't. Is it really a downside that I'll have to listen to a voice note from an app developer who's telling me about the latest update he's just put through? It definitely isn't. Like those are the blessings that I get to partake in every single day in what I do. So for sure, like I get tired, I get drained at the end of the day, but I still always bring myself back to the mentality of, hey, all of these things, they're really not that big a deal. They're really not that big a deal whatsoever, even though you may frame them as negative things. They're actually very, very positive things. And these positive things allow you to create even more positive things. And yeah, it all does come down to social media. So I'll probably be the first person to stand against the axing of social media because of what it's allowed me to do.
What a refreshing attitude.
Yeah, I mean, it's all actually very true. This is kind of aligns with Jordan's recommendation on our Something Worth Sharing too. I think what was the book? If this is a man, is this a man?
Yeah.
It was about a Nazi war camp.
Man's Search for Meaning. Is that the one? Is it Man's Search for Meaning? Is that the one?
No. But it was a recollecting. He's kind of the long and the short of it was this person was a prisoner of war camp, and like when you read about that, guess what, man? Life ain't so bad.
Yeah, like, the day we recorded this podcast with Jordan, this was just last week. Dean and I had a really rough week. We had some shit hit the fan with work, and we were both feeling pretty sorry for ourselves, but Dean's like, oh, remember Jordan's book recommendations? Like, if we compare our life to that, like, how bad was our day really? We were sitting in our comfortable office chairs typing away. Like,
yeah, and then I got up the next day and I checked in with clients and I read their shit and I'm like, fuck, man, this is good. Like, what? And even if it is bad tomorrow, like, really, how bad is it?
In comparison.
Oh, it's not bad at all. You know, like, but, how big is Team Eugene Teo?
Not very. So there is me. There is my app guy he's got his own developer team who work behind the scenes for a lot of the support stuff and a lot of the upgrades to different servers. Like we've blown up our servers the last couple of weeks just with all the live stream stuff. So they've been working around the clock, which is absolutely incredible. I have my video guy, Kevin, who is a relatively new recruit since I think December, I want to say we started. I brought him on and we started working together. And that's it.
Your PA?
Oh, yes. So one of my best friends, Olivia, she helps out a lot with making sure that I pay people on time and things like that. Yeah, the nitty gritty. Although, admittedly, I'm absolutely terrible with communicating with her. So she comes back to me saying, Eugene, you haven't replied to any of my emails or my calls in the past 2 weeks. What the fuck? So listen to this, and I haven't replied to her email or her calls or her texts. So yeah, sorry.
Awkward.
I don't see it doesn't exist.
Exactly right. It's not a problem if you don't know it exists.
So before we move on from social media, Dean pointed out to me that you have quite a large following, but you only follow about 100 people.
Mm. Yeah. I randomly had a look. I don't think I've ever looked at somebody's who they follow list. But I was like, as a dude who's obviously a major contributor to the industry, you're an educator. Who does an educator follow? Was an interesting question that I asked myself. So I checked yours out, and I thought I might ask Eugene, what determines who you follow?
Right.
Instagram specifically.
And what do I have to do to be worthy?
He's like, tell me which seminar you go to and what the timestamp is for your top coming off, and I'll be there. No.
Exactly. No, so Instagram, like I used to follow many more people, and it's not about the ratios or being cool or anything like that. It's literally about I'm trying to protect my headspace as much as I can. I'm trying to protect myself from as many distractions as possible, because there was a time, and it's so easy because that's how much time I spend on my phone. Like I literally would spend a few hours a day on my phone, on Instagram, on the app, and having too many people there creates so many distractions. It's like, oh, what are these guys up to? Oh, what are these guys up to? Oh, new post, and it becomes a mess. Whereas now, because of how little people I follow, even if I got stuck in the Instagram vortex to the point where I started just literally scrolling, which I never do anymore, but if I was scrolling, I would hit the end of whatever the latest updates were within about 5 minutes. So it organically becomes a way to stop me from getting stuck in Instagram vortexes. In terms of people I follow, they're going to be either The Rock.
He's the sexiest man alive, can I just say?
Yeah.
The sexiest.
Or people who, like, it might be clients as well. So a large bulk of that would make up certain long-term clients who I've worked with. It'll be people that I'm working with on a professional level in some way, where I need to keep up to date with what they're doing. Or it will be people who are literally friends, who are like very friends, who I want to use it as more as a social network kind of thing. But even then, I don't engage with them much on social medias, because again, I'm literally on there, and I see it more as an opportunity for me to interact with the audience from business. So I want to make sure that when I'm on here, I'm not here for me, I'm here for my followers. I'm here to make sure that these people are being taken care of, that they're getting good content, that I'm able to help them out with their questions. And as much as I can, I try to focus as much of my time on Instagram around that.
Ooh, that's some sound advice.
I like it. I did a little cleanse recently of, people love, or chicks specifically, love to put up like ass photos.
Yeah.
And I was finding, I feel like I'm pretty like emotionally secure and don't have a lot of insecurities. Dean might correct me, but I was finding that when my whole Instagram was full of just like other people's asses, I was starting to compare myself a little bit, and which is so ridiculous because it's the highlight reel. I get like there's filters and they'll stand up and there's cellulite there, which the camera doesn't see in that particular photo. But I just did a cleanse, and I find now that I go through, I'm like, oh, that's a cute dog picture, or I love this researcher and I can read something interesting, or there's Eugene Teo singing into a broomstick. And I really love my time spent there instead of leaving it feeling like a piece of shit.
Well, again, it can become energy providing instead of energy sucking,
Yeah.
For sure. The one thing that I do like about at least Instagram and the way in which it does deliver you information is that you only get delivered the information that you regularly seek. And if you don't seek that kind of shit, you typically don't see it, which is good. The problem is when you are someone who does educate, you often get tagged in crap. And then if you get tagged in crap, you then get thrown into the vortex of seeing that crap for the next week until it gets thrown back out again. So I'm always just like, don't tag me in negative shit. I don't want to see it.
I do get a lot of that, and I don't even know how, but just over time, it's become desensitized to it. Where I just like phase it out, block it out, whatever. I don't even know if I even acknowledge it half the time. I mean, part of the fortunate position I'm in is like a lot of the tags I get. If it's a mention like in a story, of course I'll see it there, but a lot of things I actually don't see unless I actually go searching for it, because it'll get lost in a sea of other notifications in there. Like even me just trying to keep up with my my inboxes on there is a fucking nightmare, where if a day goes past and I didn't reply to somebody, I'm not going to find that message. Yeah.
You don't have somebody to handle that stuff?
No, like I've had so many people offering that to me for like social media management. I say like, why? Like I can understand the benefit of it if it wasn't me, if it was like a corporation, like maybe for Flex Success, it could be beneficial to have somebody who would heading up the Flex Success Instagram as opposed to like your individual ones, because your individual, like Dean McKillop, Eugene Teo, like these are people are coming there for you. And it would be so disingenuous and to have somebody else answering on my behalf. And like I know people who are in this industry who do like, sort of what we do as well. And they'll have their assistants or whatever jump on their Facebook, jump on their Instagram and reply to the messages for them. And I just see that as so, like, it's not authentic at all. These people are coming and putting in the time and effort to connect with you, and you don't want to give them the time of the day, but you want to get all the accolades. Again, it's the entitlement. It's like, put in the work to connect with these people and put in the effort. And you know what? If you can't get back to everybody, that's because you're human, and that's okay. And you know what? People understand that. People understand that, hey, you know what? I'm guessing that you might not see this message, and that's fine. Like, when you get back to them, if you can get back to them, it's great. They love that. They appreciate that. But yeah, like one person who comes to mind, not mentioning any names, but he was telling me how he has his assistants or whatever, his workers, his employees answer all his stuff posing as him. And then he was out and about and he got recognized. And they're like, oh, thank you so much for your help with such and such. And he was like, oh yeah, mate, that was me. Yeah. And I'm like, I would hate to ever be put in that position. Like, I'm sure he brushed it off. I'm sure the guy didn't pick up on the disingenuous behavior there. But that doesn't sit right with me. Sit right with me. I would rather not get back to somebody and then have it as an anomaly there, as opposed to having somebody else pose as me and giving them something that is not me, that is completely fake, because that's not a real connection.
Yeah, we can think of quite a few people who actually take it one step further, and people would inquire about their coaching services. And they're like, yeah, no worries, I'll take you on. And that person isn't coaching the person because it's an online service in written format. They get their partner to do it or their staff member to do it, and they sign off as, like, you know, with their name. Yeah,
it's certainly one of the curses of online, is that you can hide behind the veil of the appearance that is supposed to be you but isn't. But I'm similar to, I would have a lot of trust issues with that the person is speaking on my behalf in the way in which I want to actually be received. Like, that would be one big problem. And then secondly, I would hate to ever be caught out. Not that I would do it from that. I think I also get the same buzz that you get. Like, hey man, I actually did what you said the other day and it was fantastic.
Yeah, that's
I'm just like, oh, that's cool. And when we get all those messages coming to Flex's inbox, I'm like, man, this is like super cool. Like,
we don't have anyone manage our social media. We do it. But you're managing Eugene, like at Eugene Teo 7 days a week. We have our own social media day of the week. And because there's, you know, so it's easier for us than it is for you. But what about holidays? Can you, like, take a weekend off?
Life's a holiday, isn't it?
That's it. Like, there's two ways to put it is, I spend hours working on this, but again, it's like, and you guys don't spend as much working on yours, but it's just about the scale of what you're trying to do with it. Like, you guys are, you don't need a humongous social media following. So you don't need to create the same kind of community, I guess, on social media that I've had to, or whatever it is. And you can still, that's why, like, you guys are still very successful at what you do. It's about the levels. So I don't think there's anything wrong with spending less time on social media from a business perspective. At least you do know the benefits of it and you do spend time on it. And then over time, eventually it may grow and you might realize, you know what, maybe it is worth investing more and more time into this over time. Like, I never used to spend a few hours of time on Instagram or social media. It used to be 10 minutes. And then eventually I realized, I should be spending more time here because it's helping me with the website or the app or whatever it is. And it actually became more of a viable option than actually working with clients. And that's how I started transitioning away from a lot of the personal online coaching I was doing and doing more of the website, more the app stuff, and all those kinds of things, because just a business evolves. But yeah, like as Dean said, in terms of holidays, I genuinely don't really feel a big need to be completely taking a break from it all or escaping all of this, because like, I don't live for the weekends. I don't live for the holiday. I don't live for the time off. Like, I live for every single day. Every single day I'm excited to be able to do what I do. And when I need some time to disconnect and say, you know what, I'm not going to be on my phone today, I do that. Like, actually, it's kind of funny. Somebody messaged me the other day on Instagram and they were like, Coach, you haven't posted in 17 hours. Are you okay? Like, and it was genuine concern of like, is everything all right? Because just the other day I was like, you know what, I want to spend a little bit of time not looking at my phone, not being consumed, having to reply to people, even just post my story. Like, I was still using my phone, I was still on there a little bit, but I wasn't as actively trying to create content on that day. And I'm no worse for wear for doing that. Well, I'm better off mentally for doing it, but I'm no worse for wear from this perspective doing it. Or a few days here and there is not a big deal to be switching off and disconnecting, because I know that for myself, when I'm on there, I'm putting my all into it. And what's better, the quantity of spending more and more hours on there, or make sure that any time you spend on there is actually quality hours? And that's what I'm really trying to focus on. So if I had to say for myself, if I got to a point where I was like, oh, I'm so burned out, if that ever did come to a point, I need to take a week off altogether, I would happily do that, because I would know that it'd be in my benefit to be able to come back a week later and be more energized and be more refreshed. Although I haven't really found I've had to get to that point, because every day it's enjoyable, it's fun, and this is my holiday to an extent.
That's nice.
So you take reactive deloads from social when needed.
Yeah, when absolutely needed, or if I'm just like feeling like, usually it happens after some kind of like, if I've done an event, if I've done some kind of like, when I had I think the most recent one was after I did that pain lecture, I was just buzzing for about 2 days straight after. I was just so excited from it all. And I was like, okay, Eugene, you're going to have a big come down from this, because your body's just on this big high. There's going to be a come down. There's always going to come with that just a general flat nature. There's going to be less creativity. You're going to be more run down. You're going to be less sociable in that time. You're going to want to just, be introverted in that way. So give yourself that. But yeah, it's quite rare. If
you did take a week off, what would you be doing? Where would you go?
I don't know. That's why I don't take those weeks off. Because like when let's say there was no lockdown right now, I can go anywhere, and I would go anywhere in terms of traveling the world, seeing friends, doing whatever it is that I would want to do. But I would do that whether I was working or not. Like there's this podcast right now. There's no reason why I couldn't be doing this across the country in Perth. There's no reason I couldn't be doing this over in the UK. A lot of the content I create, with the way they've got things set up now, yes, I wouldn't have my gym, for example, but I could still create a lot of the same content no matter where I am in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such nice flexibility, isn't it, working online? Dean and I, we plan on our dog's 14, so he's going to dog heaven soon. And when that happens, we don't want children. There's nothing tying us to Australia. So we're going to start in London, I think we said, and every 3 months just go to a new city or a new country and just do that till we get bored.
Who knows? We'll see what happens.
I love the flexibility. So good.
I don't think you'll ever get bored. But it's strange, because when I first started traveling, it was so disruptive because you got no routine. Especially like I was going like a few months is great, but doing like week to week, every single week you're in a new location, every few days you're in a new location, living out of a suitcase, different hotels, airports, or whatever. But then something interesting happens, is your routine becomes having no routine, and you learn to thrive in that environment, and you learn to love that environment. When I came home last year, I think it was like October, that was after maybe like 8 months of straight touring, 8 months of being on the road. And I anticipated, I said, when I come home, I'm going to be so lost. I'm going to have a good month where I've got no idea what to do with myself, because I've no longer got all the routine that I've gotten used to, and that I was actually thriving in, not even just getting used to. What am I going to do with myself? It was sort of like something I knew I had to account for. So I intentionally booked in a couple of little just like local vacations or just traveling things. Like I'm going to go over to Perth, I'm going to go to Sydney, I'm just going to create something for myself to do up there, just to help to ease that transition. Because yes, there's no workshop anymore, there's no work, but I'm going to create something. So I have to get out of the house, I have to travel more, just to help me ease into the home lifestyle of being in one location, which I think has been very, very beneficial for helping me get back into where I'm at now in one place.
Shit, imagine going from an 8-month tour to going to COVID.
Oh my God.
Well, I mean, Jordan Shallow was just like that, where he was touring, or he's in the middle of his, he had to uproot most of his tour, and then now he's just in lockdown. Like he's got a lot going on to be able to keep himself busy. He's had to innovate a lot more with a lot of his offering, with his pre-script courses, which is, I know for him, it's frustrating, it's challenging right now, and he knows as well that's a big blessing. It's forced him to create something he was going to create anyway, and it's going to help his business so much more in terms of scalability and its reach post-COVID, or even like right now with COVID, where I wouldn't be surprised if his business, I haven't asked him personally, but if his business is thriving right now because of everything, not in spite of it. I reckon it's actually helped him a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, most of the time we have all of these little tasks that we want to get done, but we have other things that need to be done. And it's likely now that a lot of people are in a position where they have the opportunity to do the things they should have been doing, but didn't really have the time to do. It's certainly going to, I think, separate those that are willing to lock in and get work done in an appropriate manner versus those that are just going to cry poor and go, this is a shit time, and just let it run over them like a steamroller.
Speaking of which, is there anything that you've always wanted to do in this space that you haven't had time to, or you just hadn't done yet?
like in the fitness industry and professional.
Yeah.
No, actually, no. Like anything that I decide that I want to do, like for example, I thought months ago, I thought how cool would it be if like I've got this app, I've got this website here. How cool would it be if I could? This is even before I started doing live streams on Instagram. If I could start doing live stream workshops, if I could start having my workshops available to the masses in some way, because I've got the facility, I've got the camera equipment, I've got everything. How can I make these workshops I do available not just to 30 or 40 students who can fly in to come see me, but how can I make it accessible to everybody? That was like a want. Like I wish I could do that. And then, you know, in due time, in the few months, like now we're here. Now I've made that, and it has actually been that process since I was a personal trainer, where I was like, as a personal trainer, I was like, I wish that I would be able to find a way to be able to service all these clients who I'm seeing better, and then that grew into online coaching. I was like, how can I help all these other people who I can't take on as online coaches? How can I help these people understand what I'm trying to do better? Oh, I can start teaching. How can I help these people across the world? I can start teaching internationally. How can I help people who can't come to my events? How can I give them access to the information? I can create the website. I can create the app. And then how can I make the app even better? How can I make everything I do even better? Oh, I can create this live stream function. I can create this workshop, this workout function in the app where people can track their workouts or get given workouts in the app. It's all come about through the organic need of having to fill something that I have an idea for, essentially. And up until this point, there actually hasn't been anything that I haven't been able to do that I've wanted to do. When the idea comes, I've been able to then action it, maybe not immediately, but within a reasonable amount of time, I've been able to action it and make it happen when it was supposed to happen. And I think that's another big thing is, like for the longest time, I wanted my own gym. I remember back in 2015, 5 years ago, I was days away from opening my own space. It was, but it was for all the wrong reasons, and it was happening at a time that was too soon for me. It was not yet that I should have done it, and it fell through for a number of reasons that are very negative experiences. We don't need to get into. I mean, if you want to, we can. I don't mind. But it fell apart, and I was like, oh, this sucks. But looking back on it now, the gym happened now when it needed to happen, when the timing was appropriate. Had it have happened back then, 5 years ago, I would be stuck in there. I'd be dealing with a lot of these COVID issues right now. If I still had that space, if I didn't go bankrupt or trying to run a gym the way that it was meant to be run back then, that was not aligned with my values, aligned with my integrity, I would be selling out if I had that gym in a very, very big way. So everything that I've come to learn that everything that I want, if I can't have it right now, there's a very good reason. And that reason is probably because I'm not ready to handle it. I'm not ready to manage it. I'm not at that chapter in my life trying to skip ahead 10 chapters to the happy ending without going through all whatever has to go beforehand. So having that mindset, that mentality around it has allowed me to have a lot more focus and peace with what I'm doing, and knowing that I'm usually going to be on the right track with whatever it is that I start to do.
What do you think is next, the next chapter for you?
I don't know. You know, Jordan asked me that the similar kind of question, and I didn't have a firm answer for him because there actually isn't one. And as much as people think, oh, you're doing so well in your business or whatever, you must have a firm business plan. I don't have a firm business model. I just sit there and say, what am I currently doing? How can I do it better? How can I make it better? Like, look at what I'm doing today compared to what I was doing a year ago or 5 years ago. Of course, what I'm doing right now is so much better, more impactful, higher quality, higher value. I'm still going to say, how can I make this even better? How can I make this app? How can I make my website? How can I make the content I put out? How can I make my YouTube channel, whatever? How can I make it even better? Not for the sake of business, but just for the sake of asking myself this question of, wouldn't it be cool if, or how can I improve this even more? Like, the other day when I was filming that lecture for the app, most people don't know, but we had 4 camera angles going. We had 4 camera angles, 3 different lights, and 2 microphone setups. We needed none of that. we needed an iPhone recording me like this, and it'd be all good. But my thing is always saying, can it be done even better? Can we go over the top just for the sake of saying we can do this? Not to pump our own chest and pump our own ego, but just, like, it would be a disservice to not go above and beyond when you have the opportunity to. Like, that's what I've always been about with my clients, when I was a personal trainer, in any job. Like, fuck, when I worked at Subway, when I was like 14 years old, I was like, you want meatballs? I'm going to give you so many fucking meatballs. I'm going to put these guys out of business right now. You're getting meatballs. Like, just go above and beyond for these people, for anybody, just because it's exciting to do that. It's exciting to live a life like that. To say, like, what could I do if there was no limitation to it? And because most people need to realize that a lot of the limitations that they think exist are limitations just in their mind. Okay, like, there is really no limitation to what you're capable of in terms of all this kind of stuff in this realm. It really comes down to the perseverance and maybe the timing. Maybe you can't do all the things you want to do immediately, but it is possible, and you can have those goals and you can work towards them. But it's always got to start with the one question of, how can we improve this? How can this be made even better? So that's what's always bouncing around my head right now. It's like, right now I'm really comfortable with what's happening. I'm still thinking, how can I make this better? And I haven't gotten the answer to that just yet. Not just yet.
It's got to be a lot of job satisfaction in that, not just doing the minimum that's necessary.
Well, that's because most of your decisions are made around chasing betterment, but in a line with integrity. And I think even like Liz and I, from the very beginning, always have had open discussions about making decisions for the betterment of the message, not for necessarily the betterment of trying to make X dollars and do it in a particular way. It's always like, we should offer this to clients because that will be better for the client. And it just so happens that when you actually have solid integrity and you work hard at your craft, that most people then like that craft and follow you with it, right?
Well, actually, we don't make decisions based off how many more followers can we get putting this post up, or how much more money could we charge our clients for this service. Because if that was the case, we'd have more followers and more money. But we definitely have particular goals, and we kind of dig our heels in and do the work. For the
but
quality,
again, it's more aligned with integrity than it is about doing things for the sake of doing them, or for the purpose of the end goal being a financial gain.
Yeah,
sure.
Is there anything you've done in the past that you wish you did better, or didn't do at all, or didn't pump?
No. I'm trying to think if there genuinely is anything. And it comes down to that old cliche of every single mistake you made was really a lesson. Every single issue, every single thing that you wish at the time that you could take back, it led to the best opportunity. It led you to exactly where you are right now. So every single potentially negative experience was actually a very good one. And I can't even think of many negative experiences that that were truly, truly negative, that didn't have an upside to it, where I would want to go back and change, because like if I look back at what I used to teach, what I used to talk about, maybe I'm like, oh fuck, some of that stuff was wrong. Like, I'm sure you've done the same, where you've put it confidently, you're like, you know what? Fucking 10 years ago, Dean McKillop was a fucking idiot. What the fuck were you doing? What the fuck were you doing? Like, it happens. But would you want to go back in time for that Dean 10 years ago, and somehow he has all that knowledge you have today? Then he would never he'd be infallible, he'd make no mistakes, he'd have no growth. I actually wouldn't want that, because you have to go through these really painful lessons where you get embarrassed royally, where you get publicly shamed, to make you realize that was something you should improve upon with your message, to give you more clarity. And that's very, very powerful. Like, whenever anybody criticizes you or throws hate your way, it's going to tell you two things. Either that they're just a complete fucking idiot you should give no time to, so it's a null argument anyway, or maybe they have a very valid point to be criticizing you and throwing hate your way, and maybe you need to have a good look at what you're doing and grow from that. And then that was what will then, it should be no regrets at that point. And that's why I don't have any real fear of putting out the content that I put out. Because sometimes, you know what, like I said about the Kool-Aid, I'm sure some of my Kool-Aid I put out there may be incorrect, and that's fine. Because you know what? When the right person comes along and says, you know what, Eugene, that's not entirely correct, or that could be explained better, or maybe you didn't complete the whole big picture for people, could have given them more context. I'm like, oh, you know what? You're right. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being respectful about that. I'm going to improve my message now for the future. And it's that simple. So there aren't really any regrets with that mentality.
How good's that? I love that.
Well, it's true. I think the mistakes that we make allow us to also educate those people that we were. far more effectively in the now, right?
Yeah, and to understand where those potholes were.
Because true, I was like, I for sure have had like moments in time where I was very dogmatic in my belief systems around nutrition, and I may have been very blunt and forward, like, you're wrong, as opposed to just saying, is there a reason why you do that, And now that I've gone through that phase, when I'm, whether I'm just doing consults with people randomly or even just trying to educate now forward, I'm very aware of the language that I try and choose so that I'm not caught out being that same person I was 5 years ago.
Actually, one thing Dean and I have realized, I think you do a lot more verbal content. We mainly focus our bread and butter on one-on-one clients, and we have video calls and whatnot, but the bulk of our communication is in written format. And as an example, what was it that, I don't want to name names here, but anyways, we could say something to them like, you could have done this better, and I would suggest it this way. And if we were talking to them, it would be like, hey, you could have done this better. I would suggest it this way. But if they were reading it, they'd be like, you could have done that better.
Yeah.
So even just the language that we use in written format has to be really soft in case we know the person's reading it in a bad mood. So like, how will it come across to them considering a bad mood?
How you type things to a client to like either pull them into line if it's a contest prep point of view, or to try and get them to be a little bit more objective about their decisions,
own up to something,
whatever it is. That's a very different approach to what it would be if you verbalize it, for sure.
Yeah.
I actually just had this happen with a client recently. I didn't come down on him, but rather I said, my standards are here. I want you to try and come up to them. But the language that I chose, he was like, kind of like, I thought we got along better than this, man. I was like, it seems like my intention was misinterpreted. Maybe I should reword it the following way.
Yeah.
And how you type is not how you speak.
No, you've got to be really careful.
Do you guys use much voice notes or video messages with clients?
Yeah, we use a platform called Loom.
Yeah, so you can screen recording when you're going through check-ins. Yeah.
I'm very adamant now within my initial consultation period to ask the client, do you learn better through visual, through auditory, or even just through reading? Because I've found that, some clients, I've barraged them with a bunch of information, and they read the top line and then they skip to the 5 minutes in on your video and just go, you did that wrong, motherfucker. It's like, no, if you read the first 5 minutes, you'd realize there's a reason why I do this. And I completely now just give my feedback in response to that answer to that question, and I found it to be far more effective in regards to the delivery and receival.
Yeah. There's some stuff that like kind of has to be in writing, like a bullet point list of instructions.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And some stuff that's better off in like talking through a training program or something. Done in writing would be a novel.
Yeah. I started doing when I was working a lot with my clients was a lot of the Loom recordings or video recordings, just so they could pick up on the tonality, so they knew that I wasn't like crashing down on them hard and saying you're fucking wrong and stop doing this shit, you fat fuck. Well, I was doing it with love when I said it, at least. With a smile on my face. Because I mean, it's very hard to convey a lot of emotion in words. And even then, you're always going to be limited by the end user's reading comprehension. And their comprehension may not be the same as your comprehension or the other person's comprehension. We're all in different contexts. But it's very hard to misinterpret a talking head. And that saved me a lot of time because, I'll try to explain to somebody a program and it would be a fucking 2-page document just telling them, hey, here's your program, here's what we're doing it. But it could have been a 1-minute conversation spoken to camera.
Yeah, you've certainly missed tonality in written text.
Yeah.
Like, there's only what you are limited by is the amount of emojis that you can place within a sentence.
Yeah, before it becomes weird.
No.
Do you know what I hate? When someone says, no offense, but, and then they write an offensive thing. And it's like, that doesn't excuse you from the offense that you've just caused.
That's a very Australian
No offense, but, I'm about to
say sentences like, whenever you say the word but, it completely nullifies anything you said prior to that word but. So I'm saying, you know what, just cut out the bullshit, just get straight to the point and say, you're a fucking idiot. But I'm going to find a better way to communicate that with people. Because there must be a way to be able to communicate more effectively without having to rely on the word but, because the word but immediately, subconsciously, people are like, okay, so whatever you just said to me prior to that word but is complete bullshit, and you want to have it, and this is what you really care about. You want to have a dig at me. There's got to be a better way to soften that blow.
The kiss approach.
Yeah, it's that sandwich technique, right?
Yeah.
Shit sandwich. Yeah, the shit sandwich. But people see right through that as well. They see right through that.
That is true, but
people are too smart.
Yeah. I've been caught out way too many times in that instance where it's like, sometimes I just went straight for the blunt, hey, you need to do the following. I actually had a very frank conversation with a client yesterday because I'd said to his partner, he's not genetically gifted to be an exceptionally good bodybuilder. And he just said to me yesterday on the consult, he said, hey, dude, like when you said that to my partner, what did you mean by you're not genetically gifted to be a good bodybuilder? And I explained like where I was coming from. And he was like, thank you for having the frank conversation. Because I've asked people in the past and they go, nah, man, you're good. Because everyone's afraid of that. Oh, fuck, I'm about to let this person know that perhaps they shouldn't pour their entire life into it. Just pour the prep period into it, you know? But that's a difficult conversation.
Yeah, that's awkward. It's like when someone has spinach in their teeth. Like, do I say something?
You mean we should have told Eugene from the beginning that he's had it in his teeth?
He's got his dildo on display in the back here still. Fuck.
Actually, was it Alex? So someone recently
WBFF model put up an Instagram story of a table of shot glasses, and it was like party time, and spun them, and in the background was a fucking bag of cocaine.
I'm waiting for the dildo. I got excited for a sec there.
Yeah, no.
Cocaine works.
Well, actually, a girl that we once hired at Nutrition Warehouse back in the day. Sorry, what was that?
It was just table salt in a bag.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Portioned it out. Yeah.
Bath salt.
Maintaining our hydration status while partying. I had a girl that was once hired at Nutrition Warehouse, and she used to work at what's that lingerie store that Kinder More? Honey Burdette. And one of lingerie store, inverted commas. And one of our staff members had to go in and give her keys, and she is very like straight down the line, perfectly okay with her sexuality, all the rest of it. And she laughed her head off when he walked in. He pretty much went up to her and then was looking behind her and was like, "Oh my god, there's fucking sex toys behind her." And he couldn't. He said he was just kind of just like this, caught in the moment, like, "Oh, I'm supposed to be giving this girl keys. She's working here, really? What the fuck's going on?" And he turned his entire body and faced away from the dildos so he could have a proper conversation with him because he couldn't concentrate.
That's nuts.
Some people can't handle it.
Hey, just changing pace. Talk to us about this Gambaru method for those of you that aren't familiar.
Right. Well, first, like people ask a bit about the name, the word Gambaru. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It might be Gambaru. It's a Japanese word, and it is an embodiment of a lot of like what we've spoken about, where the term Gambaru in Japanese, it loosely translated means to always want to be presenting or doing not just your best, but being more than your best, like trying to improve, trying to always just find a better answer, a better way, and improve through life. So as a whole, like mindset mentality, that's what's pushed me through my entire life thus far. So on Gambaru method itself, in terms of the website, like the reason why I chose that as like part of my brand identity, I guess, was everything that I've learned really comes down, and I think what most people go through as well, like most of the most important lessons come through them really making the decision of, hey, I want to be better than what I currently am. I mean, you can spin that however you want. It could be in the most simple terms of being a bodybuilder. You have to physically grow into something better than what you currently are. There's no shortcut to it. You can't even just drug it and get there. Even with the drugs, you still have to physically grow into something else to become better than what you were. But in more of the I guess esoteric sense, it is about this mentality of always pursuing improvement and growth and the lessons that you learn along the way as you strive for that growth. And for like it encapsulates for myself a lot of the lessons I've learned with training, with programming, with exercise selection, biomechanics, and nutrition. And then it gives people this resource to be able to get access to those lessons and to hopefully at some point to be able to be trained more effectively, to be able to even if they're just like your Gen Pop person, they just want to try something different. They want to just get their feet wet, like we talked about before. They need to just get that clickbaity kind of thing. Like there are workouts when they can follow straight away. That won't be perfect for them. They won't be ideal. They never could be, because they're just the general workouts that are put out there that will appeal to 80% of people, and that will get 80% of people 80% of the results. But then it comes down to I didn't want to just make a workout app. I wanted to make an education platform where people can then learn, if they cared for it, how to make it even better for themselves. how to make it more in depth, more detailed, how can I give them as much value as I can, and honestly just as cheaply as possible, without practically giving it away for free. But it's just a way for me to just, by extension, put out a lot more content that wouldn't really sit well anywhere else. Like, you can't put a 1-hour lecture onto YouTube. I mean, you can, but it's not going to be anywhere nearly as well received or taken seriously as if people have to pay a nominal fee to be able to attend and listen to that lecture. There's always, when you get that buy-in, people are going to be more attentive, they're going to retain it more, and that buy-in actually helps them learn more. That buy actually helps them train more effectively. They take it seriously. Like, you wouldn't, like, for sure, if you had $1 billion, if you had no financial issues, I know that you wouldn't want to be giving away your services for free. Not because you want to hoard more money, but because, you know, for the consumer, they wouldn't take you seriously if they got it for free. Like, for every client. Hey?
Oh, sorry. Dean and I hosted a seminar recently, and we charged my mum to come because, not because I want to charge my mum, but because I want her to learn. And I knew that she wouldn't learn if she didn't put some money down.
Sure. Like, people will see, like, it could be the most nominal thing in terms of a fee, but they will see it, they'll take it more seriously if they know that they've got to pay something for it. And then, of course, the higher the investment, the more investment you can get from the person buying into it, to a certain point. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that any content I was putting out there, it was being like for the right people at the right time. If they wanted to take their training more seriously, if they wanted to really just get more answers, if they wanted to learn more about the human body from a training lens, then they can get their feet wet on YouTube. They can get their feet wet on Instagram. They can gain a lot of information from Instagram and Facebook and YouTube from what I put out there already. But if they really want to understand it on an even deeper level or get even more, there's the app and the website for that. Yeah.
Where do you think people are going wrong, or where do you think people need to take their thoughts in regards to conceptualizing how to write a program?
It's bringing it back to its most basic definition of the SAID principle, like specific adaptation to an imposed demand. So they really need to have a good hard look at themselves and say, what is the adaptation I want to elicit? I want to build muscle because I'm a bodybuilder. That could be this physical adaptation. So, okay, you want to do that. What is the best, the absolute best imposed demand? Not from an emotional bias, but from a logical bias. And saying, okay, you want to grow your legs. So what do we need to do? We need to stimulate mechanical tension in your legs as much as possible. We need to make sure every single inch that you move through range of motion, you are stimulating mechanical tension. We don't want any wasted effort. For every ounce of energy that you expend, I want to make sure it's going towards building muscle, and it's not just accruing unnecessary wear and tear on your tendons, your connective structures, or it's not creating any unnecessary neural fatigue. So that's where, when you have that completely logical, hard-nosed conversation, say what is the adaptation and what's the best imposed demand, that's where you can start writing effective programs. Because that's where we start to realize that, hey, a lot of the exercises that are probably done in a lot of programs, a lot of the rep schemes, a lot of the programming variables that we get so enticed by because they sound sexy on paper, they're completely irrelevant because they're not useful for the exact logical emotion, the exact logical adaptation we're trying to elicit. And that's part of why, like, one of my crusades at the moment is getting people to understand that fact around the inefficiencies that are there from barbell lifts, from using a barbell. Barbells aren't bad, barbells aren't wrong. Barbells are going to be the most commonly accessible tool for most people. So when it's available, fuck yeah, use it. If that's all you have, use it for sure. It's going to be better than most. But if you have the options of choosing between, say, a barbell back squat or a leg press, and you're a bodybuilder who cares about building legs, then it shouldn't even be a question of which is the better option. It should be straight away, okay, the imposed demand that I want is as much mechanical tension on my legs through as much of a contractile range as possible. It's going to be the leg press because it's going to preserve fatigue, and any effort I put into it is going to go to my legs. That's going to grow muscle. I don't care how emotionally charged I am around back squatting. I don't care how hard I get, how wet I get looking at a bar on someone's back. I care about my legs more. And that's a conversation that a lot of coaches don't know how to have with their clients. That's a conversation a lot of clients don't know how to have with themselves, because they are so emotionally biased and they're making all their decisions based on emotions, not logic. They're not really using their brains when it comes down to getting the result. And that's why I love what you guys do, where you're very, very pragmatic. You're very, very focused, saying, look, we're very logical with how we're going to use all the scientific principles to get you the result. And then, of course, we have to factor in the personalization, because you know what? If a person just hates leg presses, they've got such a strong bias against the UK. You know what? You can squat. You can squat. But that's where at least you understand the trade-off to giving that person squats, and then you can have the conversation of how many weeks can I let this person squat before giving them another variation? How should I be pushing them in terms of tissue capacity? How should I push them from a neural perspective? How should I make sure I'm buffering all their recovery if I'm giving them squats over leg press and they want big legs? It all comes all the way back to the logic reasoning behind leg press versus squat. And then if the person chooses squats, you can program effectively from there.
Yeah, I have a client, Greg, who's a big Eugene Teo fan, and I don't know if it was an Insta story or a post that you did, and you were talking about bodybuilders do not need to squat, bench, dead. You can, but it's not necessary. And he previously was a power lifter, and then he moved over to hypertrophy, and that's when I started programming for him. And he still had goals around squat, bench, dead, so I was kind of doing this hybrid powerlifting hypertrophy program, and we kind of stuck with that. And then eventually his focus moved away from powerlifting and just to hypertrophy. But he hadn't really considered the fact that he didn't need to do these things anymore until it was really said to him, because we as coaches have this assumption that people think about this shit. They don't just like fall into something and continue doing it because that's what they did before. And he really needed, he really needed to have that conversation to feel comfortable to move away from those movements, because powerlifters are big and they do those movements, therefore, but it doesn't necessarily work like that.
Yeah, I think, man, people in bodybuilding get lost in the specificity, weirdly, because it's actually like a hyper-specific sport in inverted commas. In that, you're trying to literally drive up hypertrophy in very particular places on your physique. And therefore, it gives you the opportunity to do that with exercise selection. But like, whereas powerlifting, for example, the specificity there is you have to do squat, bench, dead. So you're forced into specificity. So people do it and they get better at it. Whereas in bodybuilding, it's almost like people forget that they have the opportunity to go as hyper-specific as they want. And instead, they get lost in the weeds, like you said, saying, oh, squats make you get big. Because Tom Platz did X amount of squats, and I watched him do it, and he has massive legs.
The Brett Contreras study showed that this exercise,
Yeah. But that's it. I really like that sort of thought process around that specificity concept and understanding what demand and the principles you're actually trying to achieve.
Do you think that there's any, along those lines, any particular myth you'd like to bust, or any question that always gets asked around this topic?
Around programming? Yeah, like it really does come down to the fact that there are no essential exercises. If we're looking at this more from a building strength, building muscle, not powerlifting, even though I said building strength. Like if you want to get your average saddlebag Sally stronger, if you want to build more muscle and improve their strength of their body, there are no exercises that you have to do. There's no thing you have to do. No matter how sexy you might look on Instagram, no matter what such and such influencers putting out there, no matter how compelling an argument they might make for it, there is no essential movements. There's only going to be ideal movements for saddlebag Sally. And it comes down to the skill of the coach to be able to determine, okay, based on your personality, based on your structure, based on your strength, based on your mobility or whatever, I'm going to self-select these exercises for you. And unfortunately, the myth that people is perpetuated by very popular people with who are very charismatic and very easily, like they can put out a very compelling story, is that you should be doing these movements because these are better. The back squat, the deadlift, these are functional exercises. You should be doing that. And you shouldn't be doing a Romanian deadlift because it's not functional, or you shouldn't be doing a leg press or whatever it might be. It's like, no, these can be the absolute best movements for a person. It really just comes down to like true personal training is taking in the person's current paradigm and structuring everything around that. Not forcing down your powerlifting bias onto them and saying, no, I work with all these powerlifters and they get great results, they get stronger, so it must work on Gen Pop. Of course it'll fucking work, but is it the best thing? No, it's probably not. And you forcing it down their throat, saying everybody should be doing this and teaching your powerlifting techniques to those people, it's going to create a lot more issues than it's going to solve. And it's not actually a very, very hard concept to get your head around in terms of like helping those people understand it. So if somebody's putting that out there, they should, I believe they owe it to themselves and to their audiences to be putting out a very clear message and saying, hey, look, this is what I do because I love powerlifting. And this is what you can do if you love powerlifting exercises or you love Olympic lifting, whatever it might be. But if your goal is purely just size and strength, these movements may not be the best thing for you. But people are fucking terrified of saying that. They're terrified of saying that what they're doing may not be the best because that's what they identify as. It's like, well, it's not a big deal. People actually respect you more if you can say that, hey, this is how I bench press because I love it and my powerlifters love it. But for you, it's probably going to be fucking atrocious. Then you're better off doing a cable exercise instead. Even though you may see it as less functional or less hardcore, it's the best thing for you. And people will respect you more for saying that because you're actually giving them personal information that's actually going to help them.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's just a powerlifting coach or insert sport here coach, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So exactly. I can see why which is why I think people need to reach out to coaches that have a lot of tools in their belts and they know which one is appropriate.
Exactly right. Like I really do. Like I would say, like most of the best, like even look at a guy like Charles Poliquin, best coaches out there. He coaches so many different sports. He's got so many different backgrounds in martial arts, in Olympic weightlifting, in pure bodybuilding, in gymnastics and acrobatics. He pulls from so many different modalities to create a lot of theories that he creates. A lot of again, I'm not really sure how true this is, but a lot of the Chinese weightlifters, they might just be putting it on for social media more than actually doing it. But they do use a lot of bodybuilding techniques. They use a lot of gymnastic techniques. They use a lot of acrobatic techniques, a lot of calisthenics works to complement their Olympic weightlifting because they understand how beneficial it is to have, from a coaching perspective, so many more tools to play with. Because then you choose for your athlete, based on it's going to be best to give you this specific drill that actually came from calisthenics despite you being an Olympic weightlifter. Like those are the best coaches that you want to go to. They're the people you want to learn from because they don't have any bias. They're not biased to being Olympic weightlifting only, despite being an Olympic weightlifter. Okay, this is truly like a black belt mentality, not a white belt. Like white belt, you're going to learn whatever you can. But when you become like in actual martial arts, when you get to that black belt, it's not just that you've mastered your sport, it's that you've mastered being able to integrate other sports into it as well, other martial arts. Like if you look, and you can be a black belt in anything. You can be like a black belt in cooking. That's Heston Blumenthal. Okay, that's someone who's pulling from science, from molecular gastronomy to create something so unique. Like he's a great chef, he's a great cook, awesome. But what makes him go from a brown belt to a black belt is his innovation and integration from other modalities. And that's what truly sets people apart. That's what will truly set people apart if they can get over that ego of thinking what they're doing is best.
That's the difference between an armchair coach who sits there without much experience and real world practice and somebody who's really in the trenches.
For sure.
Yeah, on this note, let me try and figure out his name. I read a book recently called Conscious Coaching, and it talks about lots of things actually. And one thing that he drove home is that we're not coaching athletes. We're coaching the whole human, their fears, their goals, their anxieties, their needs, their personalities. And he talks through all these different client archetypes. There's the alpha who never wants to do anything that he's not perfect at in front of a group of people. So if you're to ask him to do a backflip, he's going to get mad at you and storm out. But what you should do is give him a week's notice, practice it with him privately, and then ask them to do it together as a group. And so for any coaches, that was just like a pretty terrible example, but for any coaches out there looking to have more tools under their belt, this is dealing with athletes from psychological perspectives. It's called Conscious Coaching by Brett Bartholomew.
Brett Bartholomew, cool. I will look into that. I need more books to read. I love anything that's approaching it from a psychological perspective, because I think we're very good from our craft and from our years of study at understanding, say, biomechanics or nutritional sciences, and we're always going to be able to learn more. But for the most part, you've probably tapped out a lot of that in terms of like how you go about helping people. The thing that's going to get you to help more people is not if you understand molecular biology to an nth degree at this point in time. It's going to be, can you actually understand a little bit about this psychology behind how to relate to how to screen different clients and how to know, okay, this person needs this kind of approach to be able to nurture them more. This person, it will work terribly for, so I've got to use this approach instead. That's what people are lacking, because it's sort of seen as like this pseudoscience. It's seen as very fluffy and esoteric compared to the hard science of chemistry, biology, biomechanics, and moment arms and torque. But I think it's just as relevant, if not more.
Yeah.
Well, none of that matters if you don't know how to get through to the person.
Well, I was going to say, I think that's the disconnect between the intellectual who's just trying to learn for the betterment of themselves and a coach. Because like becoming a coach is essentially phasic. Like there's the theoretical component where you have to learn the background information from start to finish so that you can then educate in simple terms to people that haven't done the theoretical. There's the application that's absolutely necessary in order for you to become better at your craft. And then there's once you know enough to make an impact, now it's like, how do you use other techniques to maximize implementation and compliance? Because that's where we go wrong massively in our industry with nutrition. Like you only have to know a certain amount of things. Like we could just say you eat calories, protein, do that every day, you get the result. But why the fuck doesn't it work? You know, it doesn't work because most people haven't nailed that third part. How do we manipulate or how do we manage the individual within their entire ecosystem so that they can then implement the principles that you've taught them to their own protocol, essentially.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, but I would agree that people do think that it's like fluffy and unimportant and they don't really learn it. But I would encourage everyone to do so. For sure.
Like it's what's helped me the most in terms of how I work with clients versus how I work with my business. The second I started giving that more credence, more appreciation, everything started growing more because everything that we do is people-centric. Like we're working with real human beings, so the better you can communicate with them, they're probably going to become better clients. They're probably going to become raving fans of what you do. They're probably going to want to support what you do. Even after they've left you as a client, they're still going to leave on good terms. And they're all positive things that you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you do much one-on-one stuff now?
Not really. Like I do have a few clients who I work with online, but even then it's a very small handful because I know that I can't keep up with it. I can't keep up with everything else I'm trying to do. And it's been a very bitter pill to swallow because of how much I love working with people in a one-on-one client setting, like in the gym or online or whatever it is. But I know that the hours I'm going to spend investing on that one person, I could have helped thousands. And I could help thousands more than I helped that one person for the most part. So as soon as I started making that transition, it's too hard to be able to take that on as clients because I can't afford to make that opportunity cost too often because of what I really see a lot of what I do with like Gamboa growing into. Every hour that I spend doing that kind of work is taking away from my ability to impact other people.
Yeah, and they are draining.
Some people can be.
They can also be uplifting for sure.
Depends. It depends. Now, Dean and I have some funsy questions for you.
Yes.
Oh, starting with, so the Flex Success podcast, our tagline is how to be less shit.
Great.
And we've spoken about quite a few things today, so pull from any part you wish. What would be some tips for people on how to be less shit?
How to be less shit. The number one thing is, an important thing that springs to mind is get comfortable with having uncomfortable conversations, whatever that means for you. Whether it's uncomfortable conversation with your employer, with your clients, is it with yourself? And really understanding, like we can talk about like squats and leg press. It's uncomfortable to come up and realize to yourself, fuck, I've spent my entire training career focusing on the back squat when it is completely misaligned with my true goal and my true mission with grow muscle mass. It's a weird mission to have, but fair enough. We all do kind of weird things. My life mission, have big juice squats that make people want to throw up in their mouths when they see them. Yes. But yeah, that's a hard conversation to have yourself to really come to terms with the fact that, yeah, what I've done for so long has been honestly less than ideal. It's been incorrect, and I would be better served doing a leg press instead. It's a hard conversation to have, but at the end of that can come a lot of growth and a reframing that can help you with your business or your clients or whatever else it may be. It could be having hard conversations with your clients where, like, yeah, you be frank with them and say, look, you know what, you don't have the genetics to be a good bodybuilder. So you can still bodybuild, but understand that you're going to look like absolute shit. So fair. It could also be about having, your everyday, it could be a very, very busy mother, okay, who's taking care of 3 kids and who wants to drop those last few kilos of fat, Okay, the last 5 kilos, and then I'm going to be happy. The hard conversation is telling that person, this actually, like, it's possible for you to do that, to drop those 5 kilos. You can actually make a big result probably by following some better lifestyle principles, but really ask yourself, is this actually going to be a good thing for your family? Is this actually realistic for you when you think about the fact that you can't hit your macros, or you find it hard to get to the gym on time, or you find it hard to juggle with things because you're trying to feed your 3 fucking kids? I think that's a fair little thing to make. Like, we can't have it all the time. You can definitely get the results. You can definitely spend, a dedicated few months and just nail it, but you'll probably be neglecting your kids a little bit. You'll probably be neglecting your family a little bit. You can't have it all the time. That's a bitter pill to swallow. That's a hard conversation, because everything that's out there in social media and the world saying you can have it all. You can have the body. You can have a baby yesterday and be shredded in 2 days' time. You can just look like this. It's all the highlights reel. So it's so hard to have the conversation to tell people that, you know what, we can't all have it all. Like, I'm never going to be an incredible basketball player. I'm never going to probably be an incredible athlete with my martial arts practice, because I don't devote enough time to it, but I'm okay with that. So I sit there and say, you know what, Eugene, it sucks. You're never going to probably be incredible at what you do with martial arts, but that's fine. I'm happy with settling with my improvements that I make each day. I'm happy with enjoying given the amount of investment I make in it, and that's fine. But yeah, how to be less shit is understand that you probably are going to be shit at some things. You can't be great at everything all the time, but it comes down to having those hard conversations, and then it helps you realize saying, what do I really care about? What do I really want? Do I want a happy family? Do I want thriving children? Or do I want a 6-pack of abs? Yeah. Probably 6-pack abs. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah.
Just get lipo.
Just get lipo.
Just get lipo. Just the fat freeze it away, kill it.
It'll also make you happy, apparently.
To quote our Life After Dieting book, you can have it all, you just can't have it all at once.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly right. I love that sentiment. Because the industry's lied to you. It's all that you can have it all the time.
On your highlight reel of Instagram, perhaps.
True.
Yeah.
Next segment for us is something worth sharing. It can be anything that you think is of value to the listeners.
It can even be your app.
It can be your app, of course it can. I mean, it's kind of valuable.
Plug, isn't that? I had no idea this was coming. It's not like I didn't even have anything prepared. Oh, look at this. I mean, if you're on YouTube right now, you can see there's a nice, look at this. There's this app, and that's pretty cool, isn't it? It sounds expensive. It sounds pretty expensive though. Like it looks pretty high end in here. Like maybe I can't afford this. What's that? It's only $9.95 a month, and you can cancel anytime. Great.
And a 7-day free trial.
I didn't even know about that. My God.
And a set of knives.
So, and there are lives. He does live stuff on there. This is pretty cool. I'll take 10, please. I don't know. I'll do it the other time. I'll take 10 anyway. Just sign me up. But good question. Apart from the cheap plug, what would I want to share with people? It's kind of hard. It's
can be a quote too.
Because there is so much that I share, like not to make it sound like a plug, but there is so much that I do share on a daily basis that when I get asked again, like, hey, what is another thing that you would share? Like, what can I share now that I'm currently not already sharing through all my socials, through my app, or through whatever else it may be? Look, a quote maybe, like you mentioned. The quote that's really resonated with me the most, it really comes from Bruce Lee. It is the absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add what is uniquely your own. Like, take that mentality into every realm, like, because you can learn from every single person out there. Every single person, every single interaction you have is an opportunity for you to gain some useful knowledge, even if that useful knowledge is that you never want to speak to that person ever again. That's useful. That is fantastic. That is a blessing. That is a great thing that people need to just keep at the forefront of their mind. Like that was when I first launched my website back in 2011. That was the first quote I had in the tagline of my website, because that's something that's resonated with me from day one. Is there are so many opportunities to be able to learn and to better yourself, even if it comes at the expense of you learning of what you don't like. Learning about the non-negotiables and things that you don't like in life are just as important about all the important facts that you'll learn in life over time as well, and things that you do like.
Yeah. I've learned that demon noise several times then. Is that a valuable lesson?
That's right. I bring it and that all changes.
Now, it's your last 24 hours on Earth. How do you spend it?
Okay, first of all, the context is why is it my life? Is it because I've got like terminal disease? Am I dying?
Yeah.
Or no. You're dying. You're dying, but you as you are now. You're healthy. You have the opportunity to do whatever you want.
Sure. So the world will still exist after I'm gone.
Yeah.
Okay. So, because if the world is exploding, then fuck, I don't know. Like, it doesn't really matter at that point. But it would, honestly, it would be doing exactly what I'm doing right now. It would maybe not hanging out with you guys because you guys smell funny. I don't know. It would be, in a way, doing what I'm doing right now. It would be showing up, connecting with as many people as I can, creating some content that I know will last beyond me as much as I can. It'd be sending out an email. It would be creating as many connections as I can. And that would be, of course, within that, there would be my family. There'll be friends. I would say, fuck Corona. I'm going to hug everybody. I'm going to rub my face on every single orifice available. I'm just going to get up in there. There's definitely going to be that. But in terms of what I would actually do, it'd be what I'm currently doing. It would be trying to find as many opportunities as I can to create these connections and help people. And that's part of why I really am enjoying a lot of 24/7 life at the moment, because it is how I would live every single day.
That's beautiful. In the corner of the camera, I can see a guitar. Would you also wish to play some of that for us?
I don't know. Fuck, you put me on the spot like this. What would you like to hear?
Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Well, depends version you want. If you want the original lullaby school kid version, I can't give you that. I can give you Stevie Ray Vaughan's version.
All right, I'll take it.
Oh.
Look at you go, Eugene. I didn't actually think that you would comply, but there we go. I love it.
There's nothing that you can't ask me.
So this is a podcast/concert.
Yeah.
Yeah. When in Rome, right? When in Rome, be accountable. Take away. That was the shareable lesson. Eat the hand because it's tasty.
That is so true.
Lesson. We've got two more questions, right? Last one is anything about yourself that people don't know about that may be surprised about?
A habit, a hobby, an interest, a sexual preference?
No, fuck. Again, I was trying to think, what do people not know? I'm quite transparent about a lot of what I do. What do people not know about me? They probably don't see a lot of the nerves and a lot of they see the excitement, of course, but they don't see a lot of the nerves that go into a lot of what I do with a lot of the events, a lot of the live stuff. Even before a podcast like this, I get nervous still because I think to myself, I want to make sure that I'm doing my absolute best to it is a really big honor for me to be asked to be a guest on interviews. No matter how big or small, whatever the following, I don't care about that. If one person cares to ask me a question or to have me on an interview, I want to make sure I'm giving my absolute best performance every single time. So I do get nervous about that kind of stuff. I think with a lot of, the persona that people see on social media, they think, oh, you're always so happy and confident. Yes, I am happy. Yes, I am confident. But that doesn't come without nerves. It doesn't come without a little bit of anxiety. I'm thinking, oh, am I going to nail this? I'm a little bit worried about this. Before the last 2 live streams I've been doing on the app, I've had my video guy, Kevin, who's been helping me out, and he helps out with setup for sure. But a lot of it is just the comfort, the emotional support, saying, how I've got a guy here who I'm familiar with. I know that even if all explodes, at least I'm not doing it alone. At least I'm here, I've got that comfort, that safety net. And it makes a huge difference having someone there just to help quell that. He's not saying anything, he's not doing anything in particular, but just that presence, because, this stuff does get nerve-wracking.
It shows you care.
Yeah, that's monstrous. It's so true, too. No one sees the internal conversations.
I For sure.
All right. Final question. Shitty choices. This is it's not famous. Oh, we're making it famous. It's a would you rather game. So any card can come out of the box. We're going to check it hasn't been asked before.
It's not a good question though.
It's a rubbish question for an Asian because it was asking whether or not you should
be hairy or bald.
Hairy or bald all over, and we all know
Asians are bald.
Yeah.
All right. Ooh, nah.
This one.
All right. Would you rather all plants scream when you touch them in any way, or animals beg for their lives before they are killed?
Oh, that's brutal.
Am I killing these animals? Pretty.
No, but you know that all the animals that you're eating have begged for their lives, and yes, Dean?
I'm going to interject and say you have to have killed them because it's saying if you touch the plant screams at you, and therefore if the animal, you have to be also present at the animal if it's going to beg for mercy.
All right. So every animal that you're eating, you've been around for their death and heard them scream and beg for their life.
I don't like that one. That one hurts.
Yeah, I'd go with plants because I could happily not touch plants again, I reckon. Or I could deal with their screams. Like, it'd be a fucking murder scene walking through the park on grass. Like, each one of grass. It'd be a fucking nightmare just to cough in here. Oh my God, what are you doing? I'm being crushed. But it's okay because you know they're not dying. And you know, most of all, that even if they did die, I'm not going to eat them. So it's all good. So I could live with that.
Okay.
Yeah, you would run, right?
Run through grass?
Because it'd go from like a really slow, extended pain scream to just like it'd almost like a laugh. It could be comical.
If somebody gifted you with like a pot plant, would you accept it?
Yeah, I wouldn't touch it. I'll accept it.
Thank you. Put it on the floor.
I reckon I'd still poke it.
Okay, I can hold the pot.
It's true.
I can water it from afar. I can just like spray water on it. It's all good. I'm not touching it.
I'm really disappointed we didn't get some gross sexual one.
Yeah, there's a lot of like really freaky cards in this, man.
Would you rather your dad walk in on you while having sex with your dog, or your dog walk in on you while having sex with your dad?
Dog walking in.
Oh, really?
Don't do bestiality, come on. But a little bit of
incest.
I'm sure that's okay, right? In some countries or something like that.
Well, actually, when we were in was it France?
I don't think so.
When we were in France, man, we walked into an adult store, and there was definitely bestiality available there for purchase.
There was DVDs of like dogs, like
sure.
a border collie doing a chick.
But what we found out is it's not illegal so long as the animal is doing the penetrating.
So, okay, that's where I draw the line. You asked me before about the different cultures or the different countries. I would draw the line at bestiality, or probably incest as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
Why is incest wrong?
Are we talking from a scientific perspective or from a
moral perspective? So the reason I'm asking you this,
no children will be bad.
No, I'm asking you this because this is a question that came up in this course that I'm doing right now. And they're explaining something called moral dumbfounding. And it's when you feel something is morally incorrect, but you can't actually say why. It's just because you feel disgusted by it. But like disgust and wrong are like two different things. Yeah. So, I mean, you have to give some scenarios, right? Like if a brother and sister are having sex, but, you know, she takes the pill and he wears a condom and they're really safe about it and they're both consenting, like we can't really explain why that's wrong. We just feel gross about it. Right?
Yeah.
That's it, right? No, everyone's kind of like, I don't know why I can't say that that's not wrong and why it's not right. I just know, I'm not sure.
For the record, not interested in having sex with my brother. Just saying, can't explain why it's wrong. Hey, Michael Rodder, how you doing?
Yeah. Moral dumbfounding. Was that what it was called?
Yeah. Moral dumbfounding.
It feels wrong, but you can't explain why.
Yeah. So what's the opposite?
It felt so right.
It feels right, but you can't explain why as well. I wonder what that one's called.
Having sex with your brother?
No, when it feels right, but you can't explain why it feels good.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Happiness dumbfounding. I'm not sure.
Yeah, happy dumbfounding.
Joy dumbfounding, yeah.
Perhaps. Well, Mr. Eugene, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Where can people find me?
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on here. That you guys want to chat with me and talk about bestiality and cannibalism. I think it's a really useful podcast. I think it'll help a lot of people. I think change a lot of lives.
I agree.
It's all here for.
Now, if someone wanted to check out Ganbaru or Eugene, where would they find you?
I would tell them to just find me on Instagram, Coach Eugene Teo. As much as I like doing the cheeky plugs, I don't like to shove things down people's throats until they're ready for it. So I'd rather them find me at my most consumable, readily accessible access point, which would be Instagram. And then from there, if they decide they like what I do, they want to learn more, they'll be able to find more pretty easily from there.
Cool. Sounds wonderful. Would you like to take this podcast out in song?
No.
Verbal song. I mean, you can play us a goodbye song on the guitar, but that's fine. You can reject that.
You got one song out of me. You got one song.
I got greedy.
Who's getting greedy?
All right. Well, thank you very much, and hopefully we'll chat soon.
Thank you very much, guys.